Carry on, yeah.
Yep, that's recording now.
Okay then, good morning members. Welcome to the Pension Board meeting on the 19th of October. Apologies for absence. You just said Councillor Louise Brown. Anyone else, please, Pippa?
No.
No, that's good. Declaration of interest, members, you know the declaration of interest. Everybody's happy? No declarations of interest, anybody? Nope. Okay, nope. Thank you ever so much. Number 3, chairperson's announcements. The only announcement I have, members, is it's the first time we can really congratulate Councillor Tudor Davis on the Queen's birthdays honours list. So I'd like to have it on record. Congratulations to Tudor, very, very much so, well deserved. He's worked for 40 odd years in local government and for the fire service. Congratulations, well deserved. I was gutted I didn't get it, so there we are. So that's all my announcements. So we're going to item number 4, which is on page 3. So we go to the minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 6th of July 2020, members. So page 3, page 4, page 5, 6, and 7. Are members content with that meeting and the minutes, please?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Thank you ever so much, members. We'll go on to item number 5 now. Kpi Statistics. I believe that's you, Ian, is it?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. And apologies to everyone. Did everyone receive a copy late on Friday after?
Yes.
Has everybody got a copy in front of them? That's...
Mm-hmm. I got it, on my other laptop. I got it on my other laptop.
Okay. Apologies that it wasn't included in the report, and it will be for future purposes. If I can move members on to Appendix 1 in terms of the key performance indicators, we'll see over the summer months there has been some underperformance on some of the key indicators, and this is pretty reflective of the local government key indicators that I reported recently to the local government pension board as well. It's sort of come from a patch really where within the summer holidays we have had resource issues. You will appreciate that during the COVID incident, crisis as still is, with staff working from home, it was important that staff still take leave during the summer period. So that's something we did encourage during those summer periods. Appreciate people couldn't go too far, but in terms of taking leave for mental health and well-being purposes, we encourage staff to do so. That did have a bit of an impact in terms of our performance indicators. As I said, not just purely for some of the fire indicators, it was across our local government indicators as well. But we felt it was important during that period that staff did take time off, but it clearly did have an impact on our indicators. We are bouncing back now, I would say. During September, there was only one there where the indicator was showing lower in terms of the cases identified, and that was percentage of preserved benefits processed within 10 days, where we completed 8 cases and only one went over our target. And instead of the 10 days, I checked and it took us 13 days. So not a million miles away from the 10 days in that period. So hopefully during the next quarter now we can see an improvement picking back up on our performance indicators. If I can move to Appendix 2, in terms of the member self-serve figures, very positive again in terms of uptake in terms of active members, which is really pleasing to see that a lot of the members actually do sign on to the member self-serve system. One thing for us to consider, I suppose, moving forward, as we pull communications together for scheme members, is whether we want to include something just to encourage members to just to keep that ball rolling. Whilst they are high numbers, it's obviously would be helpful if we can improve and then signpost people to the system for their member information and for them to check it, really, just to make sure it is actually correct. That's an important aspect of member self-serve. So that's perhaps something for the future we can have a look in, a future communication to encourage that take-up. In terms of scheme complaints, just to note, there's been no formal complaints reported during this period. Picking up on some key administrative activities that we've undertaken during the period, we've finalised the 2020 contributions postings. That's updating all the membership data onto the pension records at year end. Then we've published the annual benefit statements using that information to our deferred and active members. And that, members will recall, that has to be done by the 31st of August every year. Otherwise, we have to report to the pension regulator. But we met that deadline, and both active and deferred members' annual benefit statements were posted. Following on from that, we've issued the pension savings statements. Now, there's another statutory deadline for that, and that's the 6th of October. So those, so we use the annual benefit statement information then to produce our, and pay information to produce our pension savings statements. Now, this is where potentially scheme members go over the annual allowance, the annual tax allowance within the pension scheme. Members will recall again some of the training we provided around that annual allowance tax. Well, this exercise links to that. So following on to that, we've agreed with fire officers to undertake some awareness and training on the 25th, I believe. I might have got the wrong date now. Next week, in terms of the officers within fire that potentially would impact. So we're doing a session, similar session that we gave the pension board in recent times around the annual allowance, so they can help them understand what they've received. And finally, I would say we're preparing now for the forthcoming fire valuation exercise. Which obviously is a key information and data is required to be produced in order to calculate that valuation. That's all I was going to say, Chair. Happy to take any questions from members.
Oh, thank you for that, Ian. That's quite informative. Any member wants to ask you anything?
No.
No.
No one's indicating.
No.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. So I gotta go back to the other computer and look for the recommendation, make sure I'm right. So the recommendations are that recommendations on 3.1 and 3.2. Are members happy of that? Members? Yep.
Yes. I think so.
Okay.
I,
thank you so much.
yeah, I can hear everyone. Fine.
Yep. Okay. Thank you ever so much. So we go on to thank you very much, Ian. That's excellent. We're going to page 11, item number 6. Alison.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. In terms of the update and the outcomes of the training needs analysis that we undertook earlier this year, what the paper described is very much that our capability is spread when looking at the outcomes of the TNA. So we asked whether members felt that they had high, medium or low knowledge in each of the areas that we identified as part of our TNA. And this covered very much the headlines that are set out in Appendix number 1. So what I haven't done is shared the individual TNA outcomes, because I thought, having looked at them, that there's a very clear message around a spread of capability. So what I am going to suggest is that we take each of the headline themes in Appendix 1 and we work through those over the course of our next few meetings, and we shape our training sessions around those headings. What we'll do today is we'll start with building our knowledge and understanding of our role on this board. And then what I'd like to ask each of you to do is, once we close the meeting down, we'll send you a link to the Pensions Regulator Toolkit, and we'd like you to start completing that as part of your knowledge and skills sort of upskilling, I guess. In terms of the Pension Regulator Toolkit, I know some members have completed this previously, but to ensure that we proceed with at least a minimum level of shared understanding, I think what we're suggesting is that members undertake this toolkit exercise probably on an annual basis. And then that will allow us, when we come out with the TNA in future, for members to say that they've completed the toolkit, and then they'll at least be able to tick the box that says I've got a minimum standard of knowledge in this area. So I think in terms of where we're at, just to share that with you and to ask for agreement to proceed along those lines in terms of our upskilling programme, our training strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Fine.
thank you, Alison. Does everybody agree with that? Anybody?
Yes.
Say
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you ever so much. So that will happen after the meeting's finished, Alison, is it?
Yes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask him to take us through a couple of documents that are on the Pensions Regulator site around our role as members, and then as soon as we shut the meeting down, you'll get an email from myself with the link to the toolkit and the two documents that we'll talk through this morning. We will ask you what you'll need to do. There'll be full instructions in the email. You'll need to register if you're not already registered. You'll need your email account, and I'm guessing that most, or if not all of you, have got a South Wales Fire and Rescue Service email account. You'll need to set up a password, and the toolkit will take you through a number of sections. It'll take probably about half a day, but you can complete it in bite-sized chunks. So you can do a section, close it down, and then come back to it. So my ask of you, as I'm covering this now, is that you aim to complete it within a month from today, because I think what will happen, as I discovered, is I'll shut it down and then I'll think, oh, I'll go back to it when I've got a spare moment, and that spare moment happens, 6 months down the line. So I'll do a bit of a recap after Kim's done her session, just to do that again. But that's how we propose to play that part, if that's okay, Chair.
That's okay. And on that point about the email address, I've got a South Wales email address, but if you could send me that, because I got to be honest, I am going to click what it is. I don't know if it's SA or S Bradwick. I do not know.
Okay, no problem.
As well, I think so.
I suspect, Chair, that you'll be able to use whichever email address you would prefer to have correspondence through in. So if that's your RCT address,
right,
I'm sure that will be fine too.
Oh, that'd be okay. I'd rather that one. Yes, that'd be great. Thank you ever so much, Sally. Members, before we go on to the next item, we have got an observer observing the meeting today. It's Councillor Glyn Holmes. He's the new member of the Fire Authority from RCT Council. So he's just as an observer he is today. So welcome, Glyn. I hope you're enjoying the meeting so far. Glyn's ward actually covers headquarters. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so we go on to page 50.
Hang on a moment, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Val, yes.
You've got a particularly inept vice chairman with technology. Is there any way of me getting a hard copy rather than being driven round the bend?
Yeah.
Yes.
Out in the post.
Yes,
Everyone.
Councillor Smith, what we'll do is we'll post out to all members a hard copy of the toolkit, so you'll be able to see it in a bit more detail.
Oh,
I
that's
appreciate that. And it's not being obstructive and not trying to get with systems and such like. I have a bit of a distracting life at times. And the idea of turning things on and off, it just doesn't work. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good idea as well for the hard copies as well. Thank you, Alison, for that. Yes. Okay, then, so we go on to page 15, item number 7. ATM Treasury consultation changes to the schemes 2015 arrangement. Is that you, Chris, or Alison?
So I'll cover that one, Steve, and I'll invite Chris as necessary.
Right.
It was just to thank members for their support in shaping our employers' response to the consultation that Treasury launched back in July on public service pension schemes. And this paper confirms the firm and final draft that has now been submitted to Treasury as our employer response. I was keen to just bring this back for a formal meeting, because I was conscious that we discussed our response, or the employer's response, at our last meeting, and that this version submitted incorporates that feedback and was agreed by our fire authority. So this can now be used as our firm and final response. What I also wanted to just cover off, and I'll invite Chris to comment in a sec, is there are discussions now happening at SAB, so scheme advisory boards across Wales and England, around the court outcome of the transitional arrangement. So this is referred to in the paper as Sergeant MacLeod. So the outcome of the court determination, and whether we as a service, as an authority, have the correct powers to now move into the let's put it right phase, if that makes sense. So do we have the powers to now implement the outcome of the High Court judgment? In a nutshell, there is a piece of work going on in the background which the LGA is leading on, which is really challenging the governance structure in relation to our ability to implement the outcome. So what I'm trying to say is, at the moment, FRAs are questioning whether we have the right governance and vires in order to implement the outcome of the court judgment. And LGA are leading a piece of work across England and Wales FRAs, which is likely to end up in an employment tribunal at the end of this year, around challenging that position. So whilst the High Court judgment has, the outcome has been served, the question now is whether authorities have got the right powers from a legal perspective to implement that judgment. And the indications are that that will be discussed at an employment tribunal that is being set for the end of this year. So at the moment, it's a pause situation in terms of moving forward. But it's a case of us keeping in touch with LGA and any legal outcomes of that piece of work.
Okay. Chris, do you want to say anything? No?
It's just to add a couple of points to what Al's already said, because she's kind of summed up the situation. I suppose the first is that the issue has arisen because of the government's intention to try and deal with immediate detriment cases. So those people who are either in the process of going through their retirement or their ill health, things like that. So there's obviously a kind of degree of urgency around dealing with members' pensions, as opposed to those which will be making a decision sometime in the future around their pension and their career termination. So that's what sort of provoked the current discussions going on. The second thing probably to say to allay the attendees at this committee is there's no intention on the Fire Authority's part to try and delay implementing this. Quite the opposite. I think the Fire Authority is very positive that we want to move forward and settle this issue in accordance with whatever the courts and the ET decide in due course. The problem we have, as members will know from other instances around pensions, is that we need to ensure as a Fire Authority we have the powers to actually pay the monies that we need to pay in an appropriate manner. The indication is from Welsh Government that they will take time to change the regulations to give us those powers, to enable us to do what we need to do. So really it's around that issue. When will they give us the powers? Do we have the powers arising directly from the ET decision or not? So that discussion is going on with Welsh Government, and also it now involves our auditors as well, because we've asked them for a view as to whether or not they believe we have powers to deal with these issues in the way that we want to. So it's not for want of trying. It is kind of a rather legalistic and technical debate around the timing of when we can do what we need to do.
Right. Thank you both. I think, yes, this went through Fire Authority. I've read it. I'm quite happy with this, Alison, for the final draft to go off anyway. So is all members happy with this?
Yes. Aye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Thank you both. We're going to item 8. I'm looking on my papers. Sure, I am. Yep. Page 8. I am looking here now. Yes, page 33. So it's a verbal update, Alison.
Yes, Chair, thank you. And I think probably Ian Traylor has already covered this update,
Right. Yep.
which is just to confirm that the statutory requirement to issue annual benefit statements was completed and successfully completed. So I just wanted to put on record that thanks to Ian and the team RCT for their work in getting this over the line.
Yeah, I echo that as well. Thank you ever so much. So members happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
Great. On to item agenda 9. Who's taking this one? Kim, you? No?
Yeah, Kim. So this. So I mentioned this is part of our outcome of the training needs analysis work. So what Kim's going to do is just take us through there's 2 documents that are published on the Pensions Regulator Toolkit page, and it's just to reinforce the members' responsibilities and roles. And that will lead into then us circulating the relevant pages via email for the toolkit. So, Kim, without further ado.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. We'll receive a link to the 2 documents that I'm just going to briefly talk you through. I won't do it word for word in Al's email when she sends it out after the meeting. So I'm just going to talk you through. So the 2 documents, they're published by the Pensions Regulator. They're very brief documents, but they hold some very good summary information. So the first document is Public Service Pension Boards, the responsibility of the board itself. And the one I'll follow up with then is around the responsibility of you as board members. So if I just start with the Public Service Pension Board document. So this just explains the scope of the document, and for a public service organisation, this is somewhat different to a trustee toolkit. So it talks about the public sector organisations that this encompasses. So it's civil servants, armed forces, health service workers, teachers, judiciary, police, fire and local gov workers. Okay, so they all sit under the public sector caveat for LPB boards. The role of the boards, in essence, is around the governance and administration, and to ensure really that the scheme members are adhering to the correct governance and administration. The pension boards need to have, as we know, an equal number of employer and member representatives. So this is members of the pension scheme. Okay, so Fire Authority members would be an employer representative. yeah, and the union representatives we've got on the group, you're a member representative, as in a pension scheme member representative. So they're the two differentiations, and we are required to have an equal balance. You can have other individuals attending the board, so maybe officer advisors, financial advisors, and other independents. So the scheme regulations may provide sort of further details for our particular scheme if we want to, but these documents just talk about the minimum requirements, the minimum responsibilities that the board has. Other things it sort of brings into are how many pension board members are needed, how often a meeting should be held as a minimum, and those things. So I think we hold a meeting 3 times a year, 3 times a year. Some organisations might choose to have them 4 times a year, you know, but that's everything that we set out in our scope of reference. So the scheme managers themselves are responsible for the key areas of governance and administration, yeah, including, and I'll just quickly run down the highlighted list, managing risks and ensuring these are adequate for internal controls, keeping records and ensuring the quality of member data, ensuring the correct contributions are paid, managing conflict of interests, publishing information about the board, communicating information to members, so that's the pension scheme members, and resolving disputes, reporting certain breaches of the law. So they're the basic requirements around governance and administration. And as I'm sure you're all aware, the scheme manager in this case is the fire authority itself. The pension boards, the TPR advice should be formal, minuted meetings, which they are. So as you read through this only 3-page document, you will start to see just a high-level view of the responsibility of you as a board. It talks about who the boards will work with, and then it talks about the scheme managers. So the scheme managers are, or can be, the administering authorities in the local gov schemes, the chief police officers, various officers in the police schemes, fire and rescue authority board, so that's very prescriptive, and other relevant stakeholders, the Secretary of State, and in Northern Ireland, the Northern Irish Department. And finally, publishing information about the board. So as LPB board members, as a board, you are already aware that we have a responsibility to publish information, as we do with other committees, so who sits on the board, who the members are, the role of the board, the schemes of the reference and everything like that. So they're already out in the public domain, new to you. So when Alison sends the email out later on today, there'll be a link to this document. So I think it would be really useful if you just spend some time reading through it for yourselves. But it's a really understandable, it's really easy to understand, especially for those that have not had a lot of involvement so far with the Toolkit or the Pension Regulator's website. Okay, so that's the first document I wanted to talk about. And then the one that sort of fits neatly underneath the roles and responsibility of the board itself is just around the board members, the roles and responsibilities that you all have as a member. And again, I'll just briefly talk you through the highline. So your role as a pension board member will be to assist the scheme manager. So it's about assisting the fire authority in ensuring the governance and administration of all of the fire schemes that we have at the moment, ensuring that the scheme complies with legislation relating to governance and administration, its own rules, and any requirements the pension regulator sets out in principle. And again, the scheme managers are, and it lists, the local authorities, police, fire, relevant stakeholders, Secretary of State. It's broken down, and you will see when you log on to your TPR account, there are 5 key areas that they're going to take you through from a training and awareness point of view. So scheme management, knowledge and understanding, reporting breaches and conflicts of interest all have their own categories when you start to work through the training package online, okay? So the scheme management talked about the roles and responsibilities as a pension board member, and how the schemes should be managed, okay? Knowledge and understanding is around, as pension board members, what is your knowledge and understanding of the specific schemes that you are being asked to afford a governance and administration role to? So they will be fire schemes specifically, okay? So the LPB here doesn't cover the local gov, that's RCT and Ian's area. So the website will take you through and give quite good information around what your knowledge and understanding needs to be around governance administration. So they're not looking to inform you or try to assess your knowledge of the scheme rules. We will do that at a later date once you've all completed the TPR toolkit. This is just around, do you know your responsibilities around the knowledge and understanding for the rules of governance, okay? Again, there'll be another section on reporting breaches. It will talk you through what a breach entails, what you need to do if you suspect a breach has happened. I'll use a good example here. I think it might have been 3 years ago now. We actually, ourselves and RCT, didn't manage to meet the statutory requirement to release our annual benefit statements by the 31st of August. Ian, you might remember this, we had a bit of a panic. That is a reportable breach. So that had to be reported to the pensions regulator with an explanation as to why we had breached, why we weren't able to meet the deadline, what measures we had put in place to ensure that it didn't happen again, and a good idea of when those statements would be published. I think they were only a week or two late, but regardless of that. So that is a good example of a reportable breach. Conflicts of interest, so what the TPR defines as a conflict of interest. And each section that you will work through, they'll give you the information, they'll give you a scenario to work through, and then there will be some multiple choice questions at the end, okay? You don't need to answer every single question correctly, but it will tell you whether you've met the bare minimum to move on to the next, okay? And throughout throughout these different sections, you will see when you receive your pack in the post, what we've done is we've printed off each section, the information that you will need. So if you prefer to look through this on paper and make some notes as you go along, as some people do, you can keep reading through the information until you're ready to answer the questions online, okay? So each section is covered separately in the packs that you will have in the post. Alison will also send a link out to the public sector area of the Pensions Regulator's website. There's some really good resources there, not just the toolkit. There are additional resources around all sorts of areas to do with the public sector pension schemes. So if you are particularly interested in an area, I would recommend that you just have a wander around the website. The resources they're providing, they're really good. They're bite-sized resources, so they're not pages and pages that you're going to have to trawl through. They are trying to make it user-friendly, to be honest with you, and that's a really good place to go if you've got a particular interest or a query around a particular area around the governance and administration side. Additionally, in the documents, in the links, it talks about getting help from the pensions regulator and other sources of information that you might need to go to, or you can ask for assistance from, like the LGA, the TPAS, which is the Pensions Advisory Service, what service they provide to employers and employees. There is a wealth of information out there for board members. So I would ask that you read through those first, which I think is a good run-up to the actual completion of the toolkit, which Alison talked about earlier. And I think, once you've all managed to work your way through that over the next month or so and you've completed it, I think then maybe that's a good point for us to pause and maybe look then to Alison and I can have a look at a way forward around how we can deliver some more scheme-specific sessions that give you a general understanding of each of the schemes that we have in play at the moment, and and some of this summary information, and more importantly, I think how they differ between the few schemes that we've got.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's okay with everyone,
Yeah.
happy to take questions. Or I said to Al, if members have got a particular issue that they need some help with, I'm more than happy for her to give my work email address out, and I can then liaise with you directly if you've got an area that you're really not happy with, or some.
Thank you for that, Kim.
That's okay.
It's a long time since I was in school, so it's exams. Yeah, I never thought I'd be doing exams when I was 60 years of age. So yeah. Well, thank you so much. Are members happy and understand what's going to happen now? Yep.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both for that. I'm really looking forward to the link to do the test. Okay, then. So we go on to page 37, item 10. That's you, Alison.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we have been talking over the last few meetings about developing what we're calling our members' handbook, and what you will see is we are now in the final stages of developing the last 3 chapters of that handbook. And as a neat segue to what Kim just talked about, what we've got in the last couple of chapters are reporting breaches of the law, which is for ease a link directly into the pensions regulator page. The training strategy that we've talked about over the last few months, and the training needs analysis form in a blank format. And this will now conclude members' handbook. If you're content with the general direction of travel, what we will now do is turn this into an electronic handbook. So you won't receive drafts of paper unless you so request them. But we will aim to pull this all together now and issue it as a firm and final set of papers in the form of our handbook for you to refer to and support you in your own sort of knowledge and skill base around pensions and governance. And I think that concludes that piece of work, and we'll email that out to you after this meeting.
Yeah, I think it's been a brilliant idea, and thank you, Alison, and on the staff for the work you've done on this handbook. I think it's an excellent tool. Really good. Thank you ever so much. Everybody. Oh, Pam. Yes, Pam.
Yeah, there's a typographical error on page 45. They spelt Rhondda wrong.
Oh.
See.
Good spot. Thank you, Councillor Drake.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. There we are. See. Thank you. So everybody's happy with that? That's great. Yep. So we go on to item 11, page 57, the forward working programme. Alison?
Yeah, so thank you, Chair. Just to check, everything we've discussed today is covered off for the October meeting. Looking ahead at January, what we've now done is made sure the KPIs are in each meeting, so they're formally on the agenda, so that's gone in. We'll just check in with you in terms of the members' handbook, because you will have had that and reflected on it. So we'll take any questions, comments, additions for that in terms of the handbook. We'll pick up also the training framework, and just to build on something Kim said in her update, I think where we'll go on this is that probably the next training session we'll do a basic introduction to each of the fire schemes. And then to finish up, we'll have an update on the pensions consultation. So whilst we've submitted our response to the formal consultation from Treasury, then we will have heard more about the legal aspects, and in parallel we'll be working at our service look at who's captured in that detriment bracket, and what the position is in terms of the fire authority's authority, I guess, in terms of being able to respond to that. So that's the forward look for January. Happy to take any questions or comments, or if you think there's something missing, happy to improve as necessary.
No, I'm quite happy with that, Alison. Everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, item 12 on page 63, I've got no urgent business, so I declare the meeting closed. I think, yes, the meeting closed. Sally, do I stay on now for the pre-agenda meeting?
We can go straight into that if that's easier. Let me just stop the recording for this meeting a minute.
Right.